So the process around this topic of the journey, I listened to the OMG recently myself for the first time, and you know the main subject or the main outline of the journey in OMG is all about the different phases. So, you know, back then it was important for me to kind of deliver that for people to realize, oh, okay, this is phase one and this is phase two, and you know, this is the phase three of the journey. And you know, it's good to be able to have a reference point and identify with, you know, where you're at from time to time. Now, to talk about this at a much more deeper level, a more intensive level, if you like, a more at our level of conversation, there's no need for me to kind of go into the different phases, right? What I want to do is shine a different light, and I feel that this month the module of the journey is really about the journey. You know, not you know what makes up the journey, but you know what is the journey? What's the journey? And you know, later on in different months, we talk about, you know, being present or the now. Where the journey is different, the journey is actually based around the story. As you guys know, the second half of OMG is all about the external. So something that is external is actually the story. The story is the external. And what the journey relates to, and how our conversation is going to be different to OMG, is that the journey relates to the journey of the story. So this journey, what makes up the journey? Well, what makes up the journey is you have the past, you have the present, and you have the future of the story, not of, you know, it's actually story related. So this is where so this is where it really is about, you know, living this in the story, living this in the external. Normally, you know, when you're having your internal process, which is the first 6 months of OMG, you almost disregard the story, because you know your process is all about, well, how you feel about it, and everything else is like, well, that's just a story. Where now we're not, you know, and I mean, you guys have been doing this work for a long time, so you've been not doing that for a long time anyway. You haven't been disregarding the story, but now it's to be able to embrace the story and see the story for what it is. Now, there's a couple of key points that when I listened to the recording, I wanted to quickly cover. So I've written here for what we want to talk about. It, you know, letting go of the story that is to be, the story that was, so you can be in the story that is. So when I say the journey and I talk about, it's about bringing awareness to the story, I'm not talking about bringing your attention to the past or the future. It's actually allowing yourself to be completely free to experience the story that's presenting itself right here, right now. So I want to talk to you about what continuously takes you away from the story that is. So, for me, the story that is what's happening right now. Um, it's easy for us to lose ourselves in what's happening right now by obviously taking your attention to what was or what could be. But also, what I want to point out here is what takes you to what was or what could be is your idea of comparison. So we continuously look and compare what is right now to what was or to what could be. What is right now to you're comparing it to an idea that someone else has been presented with, right? But just understand, when we do that, you're never comparing apples and apples, because another individual story or another part of you that has presented itself in your story that shows something. And I'll give you a reference point in a second. I'm kind of struggling with giving you reference points, but I'll give it to you and it'll come to me in a sec. But what I'm trying to say to you, just to give it to you straight, is like what takes you away from experiencing the story for what it is by you're continuously comparing your life with someone else. It's like you look somewhere else and you see, oh, but they experience it this way, or they can absorb it this way. Like, that comparison is incorrect, right? You're not comparing an apples and apples. You don't know what's part of their story. Do you understand? So here we are presented with our story, but we compare our story with someone else's story. That you're not comparing apples and apples. You can't do that, right? Or you're continuously comparing your story to what was or what could be, right? And therefore you create expectation, right? So what I'm trying to share with you right here, right now, is for you to realize I'm not talking about being present in the moment. I'm talking about being present in your story, actual in your story. This is where you find appreciation, right? I'm talking about finding appreciation in the story, but this can only happen when you're right here, right now, in your story. But what happens is you're in your story, but you're trying to look at where you need to take this story. Okay, this can happen to me. Now, I was just speaking to Jamie because, as most of you guys know, we've now kicked off this whole facilitators and mentors, and a lot of the FTW guys are working with me now in mentoring other people through OMG program. And, right now I'm talking with Leah about, our strategies in expanding this opportunity so there's more people going through the OMG program, right? So for me, in my story, right, I have to fill up or find people, right, that would like to do OMG and would like Anna to mentor them, or would like Jamie to mentor them. Do you understand? And in my story, there is a responsibility for me to do that, right? And one of the reasons I want to put myself out there where I'm responsible to do that and not them, because I know I have the capacity, and I was telling Jamie as a joke, it's because I'm so great. No, but I'm telling Jamie this before. I was like, I don't want Jamie to think about filling up his groups. As much as I may give him a process where they have to, it's part of their training, right? But them thinking about filling up the groups takes them away from the story that is. Right? Now, I have the ability to go, and it's not a special ability. Most people have got that ability, but the ability to go to the strategy, look at the strategy, and then come back here, right? to fully experience the story for what it is, you're not comparing it to what it could be. So therefore, at the same time, you have a strategy and like, with the work that I'm doing with the guys, I'm like, hey guys, the next group, we're going to have 2,000 people doing WTF. That I know that's the number that I said. That's what's happening. Right? But I allow myself to fully be in the story right now where we have 20. Because currently we have 20 people for the next group. Right? We just launched it. The last group we had 500. Right? But just to give you an idea, I'm here, right, with the current where we are, and not trying to take what this story is and pick it up and take it to over here in the future where it's going to be 2,000. That's what most people do. They try to pick up the current story and change it or push it or manipulate it to get it to be 2,000. That's already happening, but that can only happen when I am completely here in this story. Okay, so what does it feel like when you're complete in this story? I don't know. You start to notice how cool. You start to notice and feel all this appreciation for your story. You're not trying to find appreciation. You're just like, how cool is it that we've even got this opportunity? How cool is it that there's other people that want to share this journey? I love to share this journey, not only with the people who are there to walk the journey, the participants, but other people like you guys, some of the guys that are working with me, who also have the opportunity to share this with other people. How cool is it that's actually happening? That's what's presented itself right now. Anna and Carolyn just started their own group, their own OMG group. I watch Chrissy and listen to her recordings, and Chrissy's going through training right now to present her own. How cool! Just listening to that, like it's just like there's so much appreciation for where you are right now. So, what I'm trying to say to you, which I'm finding difficult to present to you, and I'll give you some pondering, and we can all ponder about it and come back and reflect more on it. But what the outcome of this, right? When you are actually allowing yourself to be in the story that has presented itself right now, the feeling that starts to come through that is appreciation. And you start to have appreciation for the story. Now, the internal process is all about appreciation for the feeling. It's the appreciation for that connection you have to the one, to the energy. It's all about the connection, all right? A connection to the formless. Now, it's about experiencing appreciation for the story. Something that most people go, well, it's just the story. Yeah, and it's an amazing story. But you're not finding appreciation for what could be. You're finding appreciation for what is in the story. I'll give you another example. Someone might want to lose weight. It's a big one. People always think about that, right? And again, that takes them away. And again, there's nothing wrong with going, well, I'm going to lose weight. I've got this discipline. I'm going to do this. I'm going to train hard. Great, right? Where they fall is that when they start to kick off, their discipline and working hard towards this outcome, which is in the future, is by continuously looking in the mirror. You know what you do? You take your shirt off and you get in front of the mirror and you're like, oh, I haven't lost any weight yet. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what we do, right? I'll put my shirt back.
Jamie moved through you. So what we do, right? You want to kind of measure. You want to kind of measure your results, right? So, okay, if it's not taking your shirt off and standing in front of the mirror, you stand up on the scales, whatever. And you compare it to what it should be. That's what you do. That's what happens, right? You're not going to, like, in those moments, I look and just appreciate. And again, I'm very careful on how I present this, because it's not about looking and going, well, you know what, I really appreciate for where I'm at. When you are where you're at, you find appreciation for what is. And you always, I don't know, for me, I always, things like that pop up in my head. I'm like, geez, you know, like, I've been fatter than this, or geez, it could have been worse. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like, what's an example I can give to you that recently I remember happening where I said it could have been, oh yeah, like I remember in the competition, this is the last time I thought to myself, wow, it could have been worse, you know? When I was doing the aerobatic competition recently, and I don't know if I spoke to you guys about this, but in the third heat, in program, what's called program 3, in one of the maneuvers, I had to dive down and pull up back to the 45. And as I pulled down and I got to the level point, I blacked out. Like I went black, right? If I kept pulling, I know, if I kept pulling, I would have been still pulling G's. And by the time I got to the 45 degrees, I could have passed out, which is called the G-lock, right? So as I pulled out to the level, and when I saw my vision just go, I knew I can't keep pulling. So I had to break. And I broke. And I broke from my routine, and I had to start again. And I don't know if you know, but what happens is when you even get close to G-lock, or getting with the brain, when the blood from the brain's all drained out, because that's what happens when you're pulling G's. Once you kind of come back to yourself, it takes 2 or 3 minutes. And then I start thinking to myself, well, what maneuver did I just do? Because I now need to pick up where I left off. I didn't know what maneuver I did. I knew what it looked like. So I was like, well, I must have been that maneuver, because your brain's still not working. Memory's not still 100. It takes a few minutes. That's the dangerous thing about passing out. I didn't pass out. I blacked out. If I passed out, it takes even longer. So long story short, I picked the wrong maneuver and I got zeros for the next 3 maneuvers, which dropped me down. I mean, I could have potentially, we were looking at potentially maybe getting 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place for Red Baron, but instead I dropped down and I ended up getting 4th place. You know, when I came back down, you know, I was a little bit, you know, I was this very disappointed, not just little. I was just like, oh man, I can't believe it. Like because I came down, and you don't know you've done it wrong until you get back to the fuel bowser. The rest of your team are there. You open the canopy and they just went, dude, like they went, did you pass out? I went, yeah. They went, you flew the last 3 maneuvers in the wrong way. And so I knew straight away I got zeros, right? So, and I just remember after that moment, like just naturally, I'm just in the moment. Okay. I'm in the moment, and hang on, Mandy, you guys, I'll just gonna mute you there. Okay. So I remember that thought that came up. It could have been worse. You know, it could have been worse. Like, wow, okay, you've got 4th place, you know? Yeah, it could have been worse. I could have kept pulling and passed out, you know? So I'm just giving you an example of the kind of realizations and thoughts I have when I'm completely in the moment of the story, right? So after that moment that I just described to you, I'm not there placing my attention on the truth and going, well, it's just an illusion, or it's just a game. No, I'm disappointed, and I'm disappointed in my story, but I am fully in the story. At first you start to think what could have been. Wow, well, you know, like some of the other guys will go, you actually flew really well. I think if you flew that, you would have scored really good. And so then you start to thinking, well, what it could have been. Then I start to think, this happened to me this happened to me last year. In the program 3, I blacked out, and I
I stuffed up my maneuvers. I actually didn't fly the wrong way in the last year. But again, I'm going back to what could have been, what happened last time. But then you find yourself back into the story. And again, I'm not reclaiming power. This is what I'm trying to say. This is different. It's external. I'm not reclaiming power going, well, it's just an illusion. It's just a game. I could have done that, right? But that's not what was required. It's not like I had power. Like it's an experience that I'm having, right? So as soon as you find yourself back when you're present in the story, and you're not thinking about what could have been and what was, or you're not comparing yourself to what your other mates just did and ended up getting first and second place or whatever, you get appreciation. You're like, well, that could have been really worse. You know, I'm happy for that experience. And you're finding appreciation. But again, you're still in the story. That's what I'm trying to say to you guys. You're not out of the story. And you could be out of the story if you want. You could reclaim power and just go, well, it is what it is. And that's what it is. And I'm actually still in the story. I'm staying in the story. Okay. Do you get what I'm trying to say to you? It's different to in the internal process, you're finding appreciation for the formless. In the external process, you're finding appreciation for the form, but you can only find appreciation for the form, it's not an affirmation and going, well, look at all these things I've got to be grateful for. It's by being in the story and not trying to be anywhere else. Like I said to you, like in the business, what I'm doing right now, I'm leading this to where it's going. It's going somewhere. And I have commitments and I have responsibilities to the guys who I work with. I said to them, don't worry, I'll fill it up. I'm looking for the people. You guys don't, and I told this to Leah, I don't want them to have to find people. I want to do it. Now, as part of the training, they might do that, right? But this is designed for me to do it, for me to find the people. So there is a commitment there. There is a responsibility there to the story. So it's easier for me to go into the future and go, come on, we've got to get 2,000. Come on, we've got to get. But then you lose yourself. You get sucked into the story. That's why I prefer the guys not to do that. Let me do that, right? The story of what is. So I just want you to ponder on that from a point that I guess what I'm trying to share that with you is and where you're pondering should be reflecting on is how's this different to when you're reclaiming power, right? Versus when you're actually, because you're actually being in the story. When you're reclaiming power from the story. Over here, you're actually in the story, right? But you're finding appreciation of being in the story. It's like when I give you the reference point of when someone is in meditation or when there's silence, right? There's this stillness and they can feel the energy, and the energy is calm and still. But they can also take that stillness and that calmness and that energy and they can move it into form and experience what's known as the flow. I always say the energy that is in movement, it's moving, right, is when you experience the flow. But it's the same thing. So some people find meditation or the stillness when they're being completely still. Sometimes, a lot of times for me, I do it when, my mind becomes still. But sometimes I go for a walk or exercise for my mind to become still, completely still, for the pondering to take place, for me to experience myself in the flow. Do you understand? So here is this experience where you're having completely stillness in the moment when you're meditating. And then here's this experience where your experience, it's a different version of meditation. This one's moving, where the other one's still. This is now the stillness that moves. And most people will describe that as being in the flow. Two different things which come from the same place or come from the same thing. So what I'm trying to explain to you right now is here's a scenario for the last 6 months of OMG, the internal process, which is all about reclaiming power from the story. And now we're going to the story. Well, how do you experience the story as an infinite being? You experience it for what it is. You're still in the story. Yes, the story is going somewhere. It always will. And yes, the story has come from somewhere. It always has. Just like when you're having a dream. When you have a dream, you're just suddenly in a dream. But in the dream, there's something that happened in the past, and there's somewhere where you're going in the dream. But it's not really. Because you just came into the dream now. But the dream might have a past. But it might have where you're going. So yeah, to me, the journey. People say, well, it's not about the destination; it's about the journey. But yeah, it is about the journey, but it's about being there, the journey, and along the way, that the journey is going somewhere. It's okay to go, oh, it's going there, but then coming back here and being here for what it is. Right? You're trying to lose weight. Well, this is where you're at now. Do you know? And you're here, not trying to change it to where you want it to go. Don't worry, it's still going to go there, but it can't go there if you're continuously measuring it for where it should be. If you're still comparing it, you're stopping this to move. It's very simple, but at the same time, maybe a little bit complicated. So here's the homework. And I'm going to open up and we're going to have a conversation in a sec. I just want to know how this landed for you. And we're going to take all our shirts off in a sec. So ready? Just kidding. I bet I got excited. So this is the homework. There's something that I found one of the most profound things that I listened to in the OMG module. Something that I felt that we can ponder on. Oh, Gaz is calling me. Hang up. I talk about in there. I actually start talking to you guys. Talk about feeling moved, right? So I want you to ponder on what is feeling moved. I feel moved. All right. When you say I feel moved to, Gaz.
Yeah.
I'll call you back. We're just in the middle of
Sorry.
recording.
Okay.
When you're feeling moved and you say I feel moved, I want you to ponder, well, what is that? Okay, it's actually it's something very simple. And when you realize it, you're like, oh, that's interesting. I feel moved. Ask yourself, like, say it over again. I feel moved. So what is it to feel moved? That's the pondering for today. Another thing that I've just written here is what I've got from listening to the module that I would like you guys to ponder on, and we can talk about both these things. When you're really here, right, and we're talking about being here in the story, right, it feels as though you are everywhere, not just here or there. I don't know if I got that from the actual module or
you mentioned that in the module.
I did mention it in the module. Yeah. Okay, great. So it's another thing. When you're really here, I'll say it again. When you're really here, it feels as though you are everywhere, not just here or there. I want you to ponder on that. I'll post both of these. As you guys know, the homeworks and everything now is not getting posted on the WhatsApp. WhatsApp is just for the communication. So I'll post it on the FTW page, okay, on Facebook. So that's the homework to ponder on that. And ultimately just ponder on this whole conversation, this whole topic of, well, what is it You know, what's the difference? What's the difference between being here in the story versus being here in the moment? It's a good question. Because we're talking about the internal and the external. External's got to do with the story. Is there a difference? I don't know. I'm just posing the question. What's the difference between being here in the moment and being here in the story? See, again, the moment is something that you'll do. See, Mandy, the moment is something that you'll do. You know, when you're being here in the moment, you're really, you can reference it to the formless quite easily. Whereas being here in the story is, you know, I don't know. I'm just putting it out there, but I want you to ponder on it. I probably don't have anything to say about it at this stage. So did you guys get that down? I'll post it again on the FTW Facebook page. Or you'll get the communication anyway. So guys, just tell me what are you grasping what I'm saying about the story? Because now it's about the story. You know, if we're now doing the training about the external process, well, it's about the story. But if I said that to you in the first month, if someone's doing this, you know, when you first did this when you first did the OMG, if I said to you, well, it's actually about the story, I'd probably lose you because you're just going to the story. So first you need to pull yourself out of the story and then come back and go, okay, you know, you may have heard me talk about this in OMG somewhere where I talk about, you know, where I kind of hibernated for a good 2 or 3 years and retracted myself from I just moved away from owning a company and playing this big financial chasing game, the rat wheel. I just moved away from it all. And I was having, you know, for 3 years, it was a massive internal process. It was not about the story. The story's not real. The story's not real. It was just like, you know, and just kept connecting with what was true. You know, it was an internal process. My internal process went for a good 3 years. But then there was a point where it was, and again, you'll hear this, and I think I talk about it in this OMG, right? They're all blending in together. Where I say, there's a point I got to where I was like, I was driving down in Sydney and I saw a sign. It was about this time, it was in December. It was about this December, it was that time of the year. And I was driving through the street and I saw a sign in office that said for lease. I see that all the time. What's the big, but right there, a feeling came up. And it was like, it's time to get an office. And I was thinking, an office for what? I wasn't doing anything. I was having these internal processes. I was hibernating. I was in a sabbatical, right? So of course, within 2 months later, early January, I got an office. And from there, everything started. And within a few months later, I ended up having a team, and you've heard the story, right? But the point is, when I started to come back into the external and start to actually learn or live this, it felt like there was a different part of me, but it felt like I hadn't walked for a long time and I needed to learn how to walk again. I needed to learn how to be in the story again. This is the process now. It's being in the story, but there's a different part of you showing up. And when you are experiencing the story from how I'm telling it to you right now, is you're continuously present to what is in the story. Again, you're free to go to the future and go, this is the direction. This is my vision. This is what's happening. And again, I don't need to tell you guys that. It's all because you're feeling that. It's not because, oh, I'm thinking, well, maybe I should go this direction because I'm going to get more rich. It's not that. You're still feeling, and you can feel the direction that this is going. I'm doing this right now with AZ, with this business, with the guys who are working with me, the mentors. I'm doing this right now. I can feel where we're going, right? But it's just like, Okay, then I come back here. This is the story now. And it's not like you're going, you're not comparing the story now to what your vision of what it could be. You're in the story and you are noticing a complete appreciation for what the story is. You're not trying to find the appreciation. Appreciation is there. And you're like, yeah, you know, and these are the thoughts I'm having. Like, how cool is it that I get to do this? How cool. Like, just walking on the beach every morning, just like, this is my work, or this is what I love to do. I get to ponder and just walk on the beach and ponder and then share it. Like, how cool. Or I could be thinking, fuck, how am I going to fill up Anna and Carolyn's group? All right, Jamie, I promised him 20 people in the next group. Like, you know, and then start getting the whip out and trying to create the result, you know. Very different. Very different. I'm just describing the different experiences of how I experienced it, or how you could experience it differently when you're completely in the story here. But remember, you can only be completely in the story here when you're not comparing it to what was or to what is. And when you're not doing that, you're releasing any expectations. I mean, I know the next WTF is going to have 2,000 plus people, but I don't have expectation. How do you explain that? Well, the only reason I don't have expectation is because I'm not still in the future thinking, well, we're going to have 2,000 people. And then comparing that 2,000 people to where I am right now, I'm going, well, we've only got 20. How are we going to get there? No. I know that's what's happening, but I don't have expectation of that because I'm back here. And then I'm experiencing how cool is it that I'm doing this right now? I mean, when I remember first moving into this house, and still to this day, I can't tell you how many times I said to Sally, how cool is it that we live in this house? Like, this is our house. This is a great place to live. But don't get me wrong, I was feeling the same thing before. That's the journey. But some of you might go, or some people might hear this and go, well, I don't like where I live, right? I don't like how I look. I'm not saying I don't. That's what people do. They go, the only reason you don't like it is because you're comparing it to what you think it should be, which means you're not here. You're not here in the story. You know, back when just to give you an example, because some of you might be listening to this and going, well, you know, you got a pretty cool life. Well, when I was going through all these devastating experiences, or really tough and depressing, I don't know what you want to call it, but it was really struggling experiences of, you know, having eviction notices, to, you know, having my car repossessed, and having, you know, the ranger coming after you and trying to get things off you because you owe so much money, right? And it was more difficult then, don't get me wrong. It is. A, I wasn't as conscious or as aware, and B, the story was more difficult to reflect that. So when I was experiencing that, I remember when I did have moments of going, how cool is it that I'm living in this house? I would say that, not in a woo-woo way. And then the part of me would go, yeah, but you can't afford it and you can't pay the rent. And I was just like, yeah, but I'm here. And there was appreciation for this story right now. The story of what could be is, well, I can't afford it. And, you know, the story of what was like, well, I haven't paid the rent for the last 3 weeks. So, you know what I mean? I'm in the story now. I'm not looking to reclaim power from the story. I'm in the story, but you can only experience what I'm talking to you about and have appreciation for where you are and who you are in the story when you're not comparing it to was or what could be. You may call that being present to the story. So then the question is there a difference between being present to the moment versus being present to the story? Some pondering to be had here. So Mandy left 5 minutes ago, so we have to wrap up. 10 minutes ago. So ponder on it. It's simple, but I guess what I'm trying to get you guys to realize is that there's, you know, I mean, that's what my journey was. There was this huge internal process, but there was a moment where it was done and it was time for me to go back into the story. And I mean, like when I go back into the story, I mean like play the game. But it felt like there was a different part of me that came to play. So therefore, it felt like I was learning to walk again. And why? Because every time I went to do something, my old way would come in and go, oh, well, we're going to do this, we'll go do this, and we'll make this plan. And then I'll be like, it doesn't feel right. No, I don't want to do that. No, disregard that. So I would have to then, it was slow to get walking. So that's why I say it felt like I was walking again. Because it's like, no, I don't do that anymore. And I would begin to realize, no, I just don't. I don't do that. I don't chase the people. I don't chase the result. I just don't feel to do that. It changed. So that's what I'm describing here. So yeah, questions, comments? Is it landing for you? Is it? It is. Well, tell me how it is. What did you get from today?
Something that I've been pondering on lately is this visual of oneness as like a circle becoming infinity. I can't do it with my hands.
Yeah.
Infinity symbol.
Yeah.
And then that being a continuum. So it's not that you're ever not the one, but now you're in this formed version. And when we keep talking about this, like phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, it feels to me that like phase 1 is on one end of the infinity symbol and phase 2 is on the other end, or like internal, external, you know, positive, whatever, all of those things. And then all of the phase 3s like end up in that center point, which is like the drop through into oneness. And so with the reclaiming power, it's like first you have to learn that you aren't the story, and you do that by reclaiming yourself and being able to see like your expectations and assumptions and the things out there that are triggers and judgments or whatever. But then as you do that work, and I feel very much like this is the phase I'm in now, is like figuring out how to re-enter the world, but not be determined by the story, but play in the story, and, you know, like keep in that center point of the infinity, but it's still a continuum of like, yes, you know, I'll have a reaction, but no, it won't pull me out of that center point. I'll be like, oh, this is the experience I'm having now. Like, it doesn't make me forget who I am, but it's what I'm here to experience. So then it's just like an allowing of that experience and everything that comes with it, without the need to compare it to past or future or whatever, and all those things. But yeah, that visual is like very much, it's like the oneness, and it's like when you say that oneness separated a part of itself, it's like what it feels like to me is it like pinched itself to create the polarized experience, but the oneness is still there, still present. It's just, you know, it's just changed.
Yeah, that's a great interpretation, and I feel you in that. So yeah, great. Thanks, Fanny.
Thank you.
Well, for me, what I'm hearing is allowing the feeling or the notion that has arisen to continue to unfold itself and not interfering with what wants to unfold. And yeah, it's being present in the story, and it's also being present within myself with what's there and what wants to unfold. So that's what I'm doing, and that's great.
Very good. Thanks, Abe. Appreciate it. Anyone else?
I was going to say, you had said this in another module before, but it's when the two are coming together, the internal and the external. That's what I feel like when you were explaining it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, well, that's exactly, that's what this whole part is. If you can just feel it, the living of it is all the second module, the second part of OMG. That's what we're talking about. And that's when the internal and the external become one of the same. You know, it's, at first you have this internal, which is love, and then you have this external, which is all this limitation and, you know, all this, what's the other word for it? Urges, or, you know, things like that. But, and you deny that, or you try to avoid that. But when you're strong enough internally, then you come back out and you create, you be part of the creation and manifestation. You move things, you're moving energy, you're being part of it. You're playing in the story, you know? For a very long time, I didn't want to play the money game anymore, because I was just like, you know, money is just something that, you know, I just didn't want, you know, and that's why when I first started, I used to do this whole program, The Quest for Truth. Originally, and that was my only program. I would do it for free, you know, and it was all about, I just don't want to play the money game. And then I realized, I didn't say I didn't want to play the money game. I said, I don't want to make my business or make my life about money. That's what I said. I kept saying, I don't want it to be about the money. I don't want it to be about the money. Until a good friend of mine, Chris Barkway, one day said, well, aren't you making it about the money? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you're saying I don't want to make it about the money. The fact that you don't want to make it about the money, aren't you making it about the money? And I was just like, boom. Like, it's like, he said that, and I was just like, I realized for the last 3 years I had been making it about the money by trying not to make it about the money. So then I had to learn how to use money or be part of the form of money, right? Without making it about the money. And, you know, it's been a huge, you know, huge thing off my shoulder as soon as I realized how to do that. And that's what I do today. You know, I'm okay with money. I'm okay with having money, not having money. I'm okay with, you know, this is going to bring me money. This is going to take away from money. You're okay with that, right? So then you're free to play without going, well, oh, I don't want to do that because it's going to take away money. Oh, I don't want to do that because it's going to risk this money. I don't want to do that because I don't want to spend my money. You're free. So, but it took me years to get to that point, years, and I'm hoping I can save many people many years. But that's exactly what we're talking about here. You know, that's exactly that experience, that scenario I just explained to you. That's exactly what we're talking about.